Watchman Nee. And if you don't know Watchman Nee, actually his story, I just looked it up on Wikipedia. Kind of got a little choked up actually. Watchman Nee was a man that was born around the early 1903. He lived in China. He was an early church leader. And basically his story was he got married, he did a lot of publishing, he was very, very involved in the local house churches under communist China. These were not allowed. And so around late 1940s, there was a large persecution of Chinese Christians. He actually ended up going to jail. His wife was allowed to come in and visit with him. She was the only one, but eventually she got sick and she died. He wasn't able to attend the funeral or be with her, as far as I could tell. And he was promised to be released from prison. Although they changed their minds, they kept him there until the day he died. And man, I mean, that's just, I don't know, that just really like choked me up, you know. Sometimes guys, I mean, and ladies, it's just, you know, the world is not an easy place to live sometimes. Even if you're trying to do the right thing, even if you're trying to follow God, it's like, it doesn't always work out, man. God does not always like spare us from pain and tragedy, from separation from loved ones. You know, it just, I mean, I know we know that, you know, we can see that happening for people in the scriptures, for Paul and many, many others. You know, life was hard once they came to know Christ, and sometimes we lose sight of that in countries where there's just so much religious freedom and you can believe whatever you want. Anyway, the believer in emotion. This comes from The Spiritual Man. It's volume 2, part 7, and it says it's the analysis of the soul and emotion, chapter 1 by Watchman Nee. So this is a bit long, but it's just from this chapter, so I'll try to hit it really quickly. Yeah, so I just try to, I like this early part. It says like, although a Christian may have experienced deliverance from sin, he shall continue to be soulish, which is like the term they use, which is very similar to like the natural person living out of the natural desires, the kind of fleshly carnal desires, that is powerless to overcome his natural life. If he fails to experience additionally the deep work of the cross wrought by the Holy Spirit, a limited description of the life and work of the soulish Christian has been given earlier, but it goes on. And here's some of the highlights. It says, the upsurge and decline of feeling may not only disqualify a believer from walking in the Spirit, but may also directly cause him to walk in the flesh. Also says, many saints cannot distinguish inspiration from emotion. Actually, these two can be defined readily. Emotion always enters from a man's outside, whereas inspiration originates with the Holy Spirit in the man's spirit, man's or woman's, of course. This is one of the dangers of kind of just saying emotion is bad, is that it says such coldness and dullness precipitates the believer to lose interest in God's work. It deprives him as well as his brotherly affection towards God's children. Because of the reluctance of the outer man to work, the believer's inner man is imprisoned and the life of the Spirit is powerless to flow out. So it doesn't discount emotion all the way, but it says that there's two reasons why people choose to walk according to their emotion. First, it says they will naturally walk according to the movement of their emotion, because they have never learned how to deny the agitation of their emotion. They are simply swept along by it and do those deeds which they ought not do. Their spiritual sense verily raises its objection, but these individuals so lack spiritual power that they completely disregard its objection and heed their feelings instead. But it says before anyone becomes spiritual, he is overwhelmed by his powerful emotional feelings. But after he becomes spiritual, his emotions often pretend to be his spiritual sense. Outwardly, these two are difficult to differentiate because they appear to be nearly identical. It goes on, he says, we should remember that in walking after the Spirit, all our actions must be governed by principles. Since the Spirit has its own laws and principles, to walk by the Spirit is to walk according to its laws. Goes on to say, a principled life differs enormously from an emotional life. Anyone who acts from emotion cares neither for principle nor for reason, but only for his own feelings. Should he be happy or thrilled, he may be tempted to undertake what he ordinarily knows is unreasonable. But when he feels cold, melancholy, or despondent, he will not so much as fulfill his duty, for his feeling fails to go along. But it says one quality which characterizes a spiritual person is the great calm he remains under every circumstance. And one last thing I highlighted, I guess. It says some Christians, depending upon the truth of not living by feeling, make spiritual life as one without it. They accordingly try to destroy it and render themselves as insensitive or insensate, but insensitive, as wood and stone. And I was thinking about this, if you guys have ever seen those religious traditions where it's like as if the idea was it's just better just to totally, cut those things off and not deal with them, to just be like 100%, was it, I'm not good with Star Trek. Who was the guys that were, Spock, right? Like the pure intellectuals, right? The no emotion, just full logic, and that's the best way to run the show. And I think you see that in some, some expressions of Christianity or just in life in general, where people say, no, emotions, even in as far as counseling, people will really debate, are the emotions helpful? Are the emotions just going to get in my way and cause me problems, trip me up, and get me in all kinds of like messes? And, I guess we have to think through that, but there's no doubt about it, right? We have emotions, and I think that I would definitely say they're from God. God has emotions, we know that. We know that we're made in His image. So I think that they maybe, they need to come under some kind of correction, and God needs to help us kind of sort through how to live as emotional people in good ways, and, kind of avoid the missteps that they can cause us.